Hello everyone, this is Lloyd from Bizzfo. What I'm going to show you today is how to set up your tips or work with your tips. I would say there's two types of tip setups. There's the one where you actually retain the tips, and the other scenario where you pay the tip out for each shift or each user. By default, at the bottom right, this is the setup when you install the system the first time, and you can actually change this. So this tip prompt is for cash. So when cash is given as change, you can enable this setting, and this will prompt you how much the tip would be, and you can log that on cash. um, and you can prevent your tips, and then tips immediately paid out of cash on hand. So I just want to show you this as well. So this one is impacting our cards, but let's do an example, and then I'll switch some of the others on. Okay, perfect. So food, this is a demo, so we're just doing a car, and we're clicking pay, we're taking our debit cards, and we're going to do 300. So you'll notice at the top we've got 100, which is change, and because of that setting that's on, this 100 will now need to be given as change. In other words, it will impact our cash on hand. So ringing that off, let's go to our cash up and see what that looks like. So this is our 200 turnover. This is the 300, so there was more given, and we had to give change, so the change is impacting our cash on hand. So it came out of our cash, just minus, because we haven't done any cash sales. And then clicking on the tips button, it gives a different perspective. So there was no cash sales. The card tips, because it was changed, it's seen as a tip, is 100, and there was no payouts, and the cash on hand is negative. Alright, so from a staff's total perspective, you can have a look to see that this specific user has done 300 in terms of payment, and there's a tip. Let's just see what that report looks like. Let's get a bit bigger. So his cash sales was 0, tips, cash on hand, that's perfect, turnover 200, credit card 300. Okay, cool. Let's do a cash sale. But before we do the cash sale, I want to switch on the other setting, which will allow me to capture the tip on the cash. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to enter this amount. I'm going to say 250. Again, notice the change, and it is on cash. And then I'm going to say pay, and now it's asking me how big is the tip. So it's recording the tip for me. I'll leave it at 50, and let's see what this looks like. Different way for the users to see their own tips. They would go to reopen, and at the bottom they can go user transactions, and you can have a look. So we can see the cash was 200 and the tip was 50. Good. So let's just have a look what the report looks like. Do you want to clock out? No. And our cash sales is 200. Our card total tips is 150, so that was 100 on card, 50. That's right. Cash on hand is 100 in terms of the 200 that came in versus the 100 I gave out, and that's looking good. Let's see what this looks like on our cash up screen. We've got the two sales, 200, that's 400, that's fine. There's our tip, 100, and we would expect we got 200 in cash, but remember we gave out 100. So if we click on a tip button, there's a different breakdown of how to see that. So card tips 150. So important to notice on this, you'll see all card tips are removed from cash on hand. Cash tips are paid out immediately. In other words, we were expecting to see this 50 retained in our cash on hand, which is not the case. So let's have a look how we adjust that. Let's go back to our program options. And then what we do is we say tips immediately paid out of cash on hand. So we are actually saying to the system, please retain the tips. Let's have a look. And there we can immediately see it's 250. So let's see what the breakdown looks like. So in this case, what's happening is we are retaining all the tips. So no change was given for 300. We've retained that. That went into our 100, which was our cash on hand. We only got 200, which is fine, and then we've got the extra 50. So let's see the breakdown. So there's our cash sales. Our card tips was retained, but remember this wasn't impacting our cash on hand because it's actually sitting in the bank, and then we've got our cash tips. So our total tips is 150, and impacting our cash in hand means we've got cash sales plus our cash, and that is how we get to our 250. And again, staff totals, you can have a look. This pretty much stays the same, and there we go. So on this setting, what you would pay out to the waiter would be the 50 Rand in the cash tips. The card tips would be retained for whenever that is paid out, and there's the breakdown. So guys, I hope this helped a bit to clear it up and to better understand the settings. If there's any further questions, please feel free to pop us a mail at lloyd@bizzfo.co.za.